Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Squid Game Season 2, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, let's start off with, obviously, what is it? Woo Seok and Junho on the outside trying to obviously figure out this whole situation of getting to the island. Junho tries to talk to his his superiors back at the police station, even though he gave his resignation. And so he tried to talk to the higher up boss, but the guy wouldn't listen to him because he said, yo, we're police officers, we act on evidence. So if you haven't brought us any evidence, we can't do anything, no matter how much you want to crow and caw about it. But like, this ain't how this is going to go. Once again, this is a powerful enough situation that I'm like, your higher ups have probably been paid off, but maybe it's just a thing of, no, we're not going to just follow what you say. You were been rambling about this island and some deadly games and people dying and yada yada. You've been rambling about that for years. We're done listening to it. You know, there was no evidence then. There's no evidence now. But I just also feel like, you just don't, once again, it goes back to the point I was making last episode too. It's just like, you just don't know who you can trust in this whole situation. So they're just kind of on their own trying to find another way. It's just like, right, we're going to have to just get back out there on the water and try and find the island. That's like the only course of action they really have. I mean, there's, it's somewhere out there. You just got to get lucky and stumble across it. Plus, they have a time limit of bare minimum. It's 5 days left. It's not even just about saving Gi-hoon. There's that. But it's also like the more these games go on, the more people die. So we want to try and save as many as people as possible. Once again, everyone that was with Gi-hoon is dead. So don't want a repeat of that game. But I'm still suspicious of that captain. I don't know. The fact is, Woo Seok sat down with him, and especially because he was like, he said something that made me think like, I think he said like, because he references Gi-hoon being the winner, and Woo Seok was like, oh, he told you that? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I think, maybe I'm misremembering, but like, he said that, but like, I was like, if I remember correctly, I don't think. Well, he said like he told me some of the pieces and I put them together. It's like last episode, I don't think Junho ever went specific about, because I think he said like, right, the person we're after went back to the island, but I don't think he ever said anything about like necessarily there being a win. I don't know. There's enough there where it's like plausible deniability. I'm waiting for this guy to slip up. There was another slip up this episode, but we'll get to it. But I'm like, it wasn't related to him. But I'm like, I don't know. That captain's suspicious, but it's like, would he know anything? To be fair, to report anything, but to be fair, he was around Junho, so he could have easily put maybe a listening device on Junho to kind of listen in on everything that was said. Because I'm like, Gi-hoon and all that went down in episode 2. That was like before, like, because Junho told him everything on the last episode after Gi-hoon was already taken. So how would he know about all that? Because I doubt Junho had gotten back. He hadn't been back on a boat once again prior to meeting up with Gi-hoon and him. I think that was the last time he was on the boat, like before, like, going to the Pink Motel and stuff like that. I don't think he got on a boat in between, like, in episode 2 and stuff is my point. So, like I said, he could easily put like a listening device on her. Because, like, especially because Woo Seok is the one that kept bringing up, last episode he was asking the Marines, like, yo, did you guys, like, report, like, leak anything? And it's like, probably not them. But I was like, like I said, that captain is my number one suspect. We'll see how it all shakes out and plays out. Another element to this involves the game, specifically the staff. We find out they're running the same old scam from season 1. In fact, we're kind of seeing, I think, what is essentially the head honchos of it, because everyone that was involved were just foot soldiers. It seems like the officer who's kind of running things while In-ho is playing the game, that guy, the one that's in black with a black getup, he calls 11 in because we find out that they specifically wound people because they need people alive enough to operate on. But the thing is, Noel, like, I can't, like I said, I'm going to misprint. I'm going to say that name differently literally every time. It's like, it's definitely no, but it's like maybe no. I will kind of say it like that. Maybe the E is silent. No, number 11. She always goes for the confirmed kills. And one of the guy who, like, wounded 444 last episode, he's like, it was 11 who killed this guy, so she gets brought in, and so she's aware of the operation, and he's like, right, you promised not to fear, like, we asked you to be a part of it, but you said no, and so we asked that you don't interfere. But for her, it's like, no, I'm gonna do my job. You brought me in here saying that basically those who are hopeless, I can basically, like, so they wouldn't have to suffer, I'm putting them out of their misery. Because she knows what that entails. You're being left half alive just so you can be cut open on an operation table. It's like, that's inhumane. You know, it's like, right, I can kill them dead and then you can get the organs after. Granted, it's like, because they've been dead for a while, it's hard to, like, harvest anything. So it's like, she's cutting into their business. Home do try to also say, like, right, we're doing this for the greater good. I thought they were just doing a shady side business thing, which is interesting because, like, the frontman had talked about this last season. He knew about the operation and he let it go on because he's like, I don't care what you do on your side hustle as long as it doesn't directly interfere with the game. But they were helping the doctor last season cheat. So that's the only reason why, like, the situation turned into what it did. But it's like, yeah, the Inho probably knows that, like, because I think you probably wouldn't know that he knows. Because he was like, oh, you think, like, the commissioner or whatever is not the commissioner, but the frontman, you think he's going to find out about this? He's not going to. It's like, well, he already knew about it last season. He might not. And I think everyone that was involved with it is dead. So you'd assume that they would know. That's why I was like, I don't know. Like, did they not? Maybe they thought there was other reason. Maybe it's like, oh, he didn't know about them doing the shady business, but they found out he was helping the doctor cheat. So maybe that's their justification of, like, right, that's why he died, so we don't have to worry about him knowing about the operation, even though he's perfectly fine with it continuing. So I don't know, like, the justification for that, because not unless he thought the whole operation was nipped in the bud, and I doubt there's little that gets past the front end, but who knows. So, but for him, it's like, yo, we're not going to be found out if that's what you're worried about. But for her, it's like, no, I just want to do the job that I want to do. Because for her, it's like, I think a little bit of, like, I think it's her way to kind of do some good with, like, everything that she's been through, all that she's lost, because they promised her, like, right, you said, did you do anything to try and find your child? And it's like, have you kind of let that go? Have you changed? But she's like, I haven't changed. You're the one who changed, because you promised me I'd come here just to end people's suffering, and now you want to kind of take back on that. Because it also answered a question I had in episode 2, their conversation. Because I kept going back and forth being like, well, because they presented her the card, this must be her first time around. It's like, no, she's been at this for a hot minute. Because he's like, we've known each other for 7 years. It's like when we go back. Because he was there when she was in the hospital after defecting from North Korea. Because I'd almost actually forgotten about that until they partway through that conversation. I was like, what is he talking about? I was like, oh, right. There was some stuff that was I didn't understand, and I was like, all right, I completely forgot her storyline is she defected from North Korea. But so yeah, it answers also the question I had of, like, okay, so this isn't her first rodeo, which means people get rehired. Players don't ever, because, I mean, it makes sense considering, like, well, unless you quit the game and then try to come back, then you technically get brought back. You become a contestant in the game again, so you kind of get rehired. But I guess staff, every time there's a new game, has to get rehired back into it. It's like, I guess you can turn it down if you want to, just like all the players could, but... You know what's actually interesting, too, and I think something to be kept in mind, I didn't even think about this. In episode 2 going into episode 3, not everyone returned. There was a good chunk of people when they left the game who did not come back. Most of the people who left came back, but there were a few who didn't. So you're like, whatever happened to those people? We never got any answers about that. So not unless they were dealt with later, or maybe an opportunity presented itself later on. And once again, in that 3-year period, they they signed up for these new games and sadly died, type of thing. And once again, I keep making this assumption that because there were games every year, but I don't know if these past 3 years there have been games, and I assume they are, considering the salesman was out doing his thing when Gi-hoon ran into him in the season 1 finale. So you can only assume there were more games this past the last year as well, because obviously, yes, I don't know. But there's no guarantee. Number 11, no, like we don't know if she got rehired for the past few games. Maybe this is like the first time she's taken up the job, and like because she was working as that mascot for like 2 years, so working at the games, this might be her first time in a little bit. Maybe not. And also had a question of, I wonder, was she working when Gi-hoon won? And I mean, none of that really gets brought up, so that's why I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she wasn't even here 3 years ago when Gi-hoon won. Maybe she didn't get hired back on at that time. Once again, there's a lot of stuff that I'm curious whether they'll answer or not. Those will probably just be like not rhetorical questions, but questions I have that is just kind of not necessarily permanent enough, relevant enough. But it's like it's just world building stuff that I'm curious about. But whatever the case may be. But either way, in the aftermath, everyone's getting offered food. I think it might be. I can't remember if it's the exact same meal that they had 3 years ago or not. Or maybe I feel like I can't remember. But Gi-hoon's not eating because it's like, well, you don't have much of an appetite with everything happening. You're kind of getting stressed out. And I love In-ho, of course, doing what he's doing, like the first one over there, as well as a crowd of people gather around asking Gi-hoon what the next game is. And he tells them the game based on what, went down last time. And he also did say, like, I don't know if it follows the same pattern, but he's also kind of mainly saying, like, it probably most likely would, considering the first game stayed the same, that it's going to be the honeycomb game. And so they're like, okay, but Gi-hoon's like, no, if it ends up being that game again, I'm going to tell other people as well because I want as many people to survive. But the guy's like, are you crazy? You doing that means less money for the rest of us. And obviously it's a point of back and forth between In-ho and Gi-hoon, where In-ho, it's like, I get, like, I'm the last deciding factor and I'm the one that made sure that we stayed. And Gi-hoon's like, yes, so all this death is kind of on you. He's like, because In-ho tried to say, like, right, but it's not just on me. There's 182 other people who wanted to stay. He's like, yes, but there was 182 people. Well, Gi-hoon says, like, there was 182 people that wanted to leave, and you kind of spit in their face doing what you did. But it's like, there was no, like, because he was even trying to say, like, oh, what's going to happen to those, if I voted for us to leave, would those 182 people track me down and thank me? Would it make them happy? And it's like, it's not that simplistic, but, Gi-hoon is just trying to be, understandably, where it's just like, no, we shouldn't even be here. Like, don't get mixed up in all of this. Like, there's so much death, it's not even worth it in the end. Because the question does come up again, why are you here? But Gi-hoon doesn't really answer it. Like, doesn't explain, like, I'm here to burn this to the ground. I mean, obviously, if In-ho wasn't In-ho, and we knew that he didn't know that he was the frontman and everything, you don't, but that perspective, you still understand it, because, and even Gi-hoon understand this, as someone who left the game and came back, he understood, but it's like, in hindsight, that was you post first game, not really knowing the consequences, coming back to the world, realizing the hell you were in, and went back into it, not realizing the hell you went back into. It's like, the hell outside is a lot more manageable and a lot easier to live with than the hell that would be inside of the games, especially when you come back and it's like, cool, you came back to find your mom dead and she suffered because of your addiction and your gambling and stealing her money, and you weren't even there for her. She died alone. So a lot of that is playing into his own guilt, I'm sure, too. So then you have Thanos bothering 333, and he's getting chastised, and it ends up in a fight. And I was like, are we about to have a repeat? I thought Gi-hoon would have gotten involved just so there wouldn't be a repeat of last game where, the game from 3 years ago, where was it, like, what's his name, Deoksu ended up killing that guy, and then everyone found out, like, oh my god, he murdered that guy, no one got involved, and then money rained down, and it's kind of, which eventually inspired the others, like, yo, in the middle of the night, once the food kind of runs out, we'll turn against each other, and then like we'll sneak in at night and start killing people. That kind of led to that. Still could be a possibility. That's why I thought Gi-hoon would interfere, but it was actually Inho who stepped up, and he was just like, all right, calm down. You guys, it's 2 versus 1. And the guy's like, oh, go back to your child or something like, they're your kids. And he was like, what the hell did you say? And he put them both in their place. And then he had to stop himself. And I was like, ooh, that's not fake. That's not him playing up this role. That was real anger and stuff like that. So I was like, did you have a kid? Because we know a little bit about your backstory, which he ends up sharing with Gi-hoon. It makes him sympathetic, so it benefits. But it is extra sad because on multiple fronts. One, he's got to talk about that sad and heartbreak and hurt in present tense, even though it's all past him now. But at the same time, it's sad too because it's like Gi-hoon is feeling sympathetic towards him, but it's like we know he's manipulating you. But it also doesn't. It's sad too because it also doesn't justify or take away all the terrible stuff you've done and been a part of since you went missing. But he talks about his wife was pregnant when she was diagnosed with her disease, and the prognosis was like, just for her sake, she should terminate the baby, but she didn't. She refused to, She's like, even if giving birth to this baby kills me, I won't do that. So that's also probably what pushed Inho to the edge. Not only did he lose his wife, he also lost his child too. So it's just like, that's all gotta do a number on you. Because for him, it's the thing of, she needed a liver transplant. By that time, he'd already given his one to Junho. So there's that. So once again, we got that context. Was that last episode or episode 2? We got that context. I can't remember. I think that was episode 2, maybe. Yeah. And so he ends up, I forgot what the situation was. Oh, he went to somebody to get the money for the operation, but it was seen as a bribe, and that's why he lost his job. So you're like, damn. Because I don't think we know what he is. Because obviously we find out Jungbei is a Marine, and they get that other dude to join their squad who's also a Marine, which I love that little bit back and forth between Jungbei and him. But they were asking a question like, yo, is Inho a Marine or something? And I love that they both immediately rolled down their sleeves, because I guess they felt like, yo, we're former Marines, but that guy over there is a badass, and maybe they kind of felt a little bit of shame or something, like, yo, that guy's cool, like, who are we to be like bravadoing around about us being Marines and stuff like that. So I don't know. But yeah, like, that's like I said, if it wasn't for us knowing the truth about Inho, it would make that conversation between him and Gi-hoon so sad and sympathetic, because it's a thing of, I need this money. He's like, I understand where you're coming from, Gi-hoon, but I also need this money, and he understands. Once again, not realizing, like, falling into the same trap, getting all sympathetic, and not realizing who Il-nam really was the entire time. And sadly, once again, we're hitting you with the same thing, but we're remixing some stuff in as well. We also have, what's the guy's name? Young-sik, he's the guy with the glasses who's here with his mom. His mom is off taking care of Junhee, the girl who is, in fact, turns out she's pregnant. Like, I brought it up last episode. I just saw that promotional picture, and it showed her with a little bit of a belly, and I was like, oh, she must be pregnant then. So it isn't like that's my wife or my girlfriend. That's a baby mama situation, because we find out later on when Junhee goes over to 333, like, oh, you finally noticed me. Yeah, I'm here. He's like, why are you here? Because she's like, I'm one of the people that suffered from your coin scam as well. I bought in. You're like, damn, homie. I was like, at first I was also like, did you not know she was pregnant? And it's sad that it took you this long. I mean, she's been here the entire time. But to be fair, she went out of her way not to be around. I'm like, it was originally 460, 456 people here. Now it's 365. Noticing one person, even if you know them, unless that person kind of goes out of the way. I mean, even Gi-hoon didn't know Jungbei was there until he approached him prior to the red light, green light game. So, but for her, it's like, no, I mainly came over here because I wanted to see you beaten up, because you deserve it. Because they were going to terminate the baby, or at least that's what he wanted. But she's like, no, I decided to keep the baby. I'm here to get money, because my baby's going to grow up without a father in its life. So I need to be the breadwinner. So I'm going to get money, pay off my debts, and find a good house for us. And he's kind of like, what are you going to do on your own? Let me help you. But she's like, I want nothing to do with you. you're practically dead to me because you kind of abandoned me. I thought you were dead because you ignored me for like 6 months. He's like, I'm sorry. I was going through stuff too. He's like, yeah, basically people were rushing, trying to like kill me for like, oh, the scam. It's like understandable. You like scam people out of so much of their money, You don't feel as bad for some people, but it's like you never know the domino effects. Like, because one of the people who scam us, he's like, yo, I lost 500 mil to you. And it's like, do you feel as bad? And it's like, well, yes and no, but it's like, who knows how much of Thanos' situation was already fucked up before 333 got involved in his life. But, Speaking of Thanos, I love that he's flirting with that girl later on. Also, once again, I'm curious what the reasoning for that is. It might just be like because maybe that's just the actor in general can like speak English. So it's like it's so interesting that it's like he just has this habit of like some of his his lines are delivered in English. So I think that's so interesting. Also, because if you don't know, I'm watching the English. God no, sorry. I mean, I'm watching the original Korean dub. So. I've heard bits and pieces of the English dub from the first season like a while ago, but I'm like, once again, no. Either way, putting tangents on that side. Well, getting back to the point, I didn't realize like, oh, he's called because a girl was like, oh, do you have the Infinity Gauntlet? And he's like, yeah, baby. It shows his hand. And I was like, his fingernails are all different colors representing the Infinity Gauntlet. I was like, fuck you, that's cool. I know it's stupid and nerdy, but I was like, oh, so you're not just Thanos for nothing. There is a reason by that. So I did think it was also poetic that Gi-hoon had a nightmare when it came to the next game. And he's like, right, everyone's literally in line for the triangle. But I'm like, I actually don't know if you play that game again, would they let you do that? It might be like first come, first serve. Like if you're at the front of the line, the first, I don't know, 20 people, let's be more generous. Maybe like the first 50 people can get triangle, but it's like after that, you have to divide between the other shapes or something like that. I doubt they've prepared 365 of those of one specific shape or not. But I love that in his dream, it's like, no, it's like a more complex, a very complex shape. Which is ironic too because like one of them had poked fun of like they were in general like the people that was like, oh my god, who picked Umbrella? And then you see Gi-hoon being like, well, I kind of did and lucked out and made it through. I mean, he's the one that ended up teaching the tech to everyone else. So it worked out in the end for quite a few people who followed behind Gi-hoon. But either way, like he was stressing about it in Dream because it's like, right, these people are following me. I have a responsibility. And it was kind of eating away at him. They make it to the next game area. And in fact, it's not. It's meant to throw you off. Like I kept bouncing back and forth between that last episode. Would it be the same games? Because that would give Gi-hoon an unfair advantage. Or maybe it's a thing of red light, green light is always the first game. But every new set of games, they switch out games 2 through 6 are different games. I figured as much because the title of this episode is like, what, 6 legs or 6-legged or something like that. So I was like, at first I thought like, oh, is it like a 6-legged race? It kind of is to some extent. But basically 6 people, 5 people have to be chained together and they basically have to go through a course and every, 10 meters or something like that, you're going in a circle and every 10 meters is maybe meters probably isn't the right word. Was it? Whatever the case may be, every 10 amount of every distance, it's going to be a new challenge. And there's 5 that you have to complete in 5 minutes. So it's about everyone gathering up and forming teams. And it's like, well, they didn't really have to worry about that until game 3, I believe, was the tug of war game. Actually, now that I think about it, if I remember correctly, one of the people talking did also throw out Squid Game as one of the games. And like, oh, it's like, well, Gi-hoon knows that's the final game if they haven't changed it. So I have to actually go back. It's like, well, most likely then that means games 2 through 5 are different and maybe 1 and 6. The beginning and end will always be the same no matter over the years this game has been played. Maybe the 2 through 5 are the only ones that ever change from game to game, maybe. Once again, assuming that Squid Game um, is the same and they didn't get changed as well. But considering the show being Squid Game, you'd assume that that should be still the final game. But once again, who knows how the season plays out, because that could be completely different. So. But anyway, getting back to the game itself, people are chastising Gi-hoon because it's like, oh, were you really legit? You said the game would be this and it's that, and blah, 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 blah. So a lot of people stopped trusting him, but Gi-hoon, Inho got in the way and was like, yo, back off. So it's like, well, you saw what Inho did back there in the room. In fact, a lot of people are cheering for him for doing that. So you're like, yeah, let's not mess with this guy, and they move on. And it's like, well, you're very fair weather people, you know. You're the ones that egged on. Like, the fact is, Gi-hoon, like, didn't say all this just for you to try to use it against him. He's just like, right, I tried to say I played all these games. You need to listen to me because I've been the winner. I was meant to be a cautionary tale. He was one of the two people, Thanos included, but other people cheered on, being like, hey, he'll be our cheat code. They'll be able to get us through it. It's like, that's your own fault. You know, he wanted to leave. You're one of the people that want to stay, but he wants to justify, like, right, it's your responsibility because me and so many other people stayed because you. It's like, I volunteered that information to be a cautionary tale. It's not my fault you try to spin it to be like, yo, we could take advantage of this. That's kind of on you. No personal responsibility in this regard. You made your choice. Gi-hoon did not make that for you. But Gi-hoon's squad is mainly intact. It's Jung, Bae, Inho, and as well as that other Marine dude. So they went out to find another guy, and they did. It turns out he's another Marine, but ultimately they get Junhee on their team, especially when they find out that she's pregnant. You know, it's kind of like, oh, we have 120. They join up with a girl that they came across because I think she's 95. Oh God, I'm blanking on her name because she introduces herself at the end of the episode. So it's her, Young Sik, and his mom join, as well as they're with the shaman lady. So there's that. There's also Thanos' group. It's him, two of his cronies, the one girl he was hitting on, and the guy that she was with, what was his name? Minsu. So I'm curious what that's all about. One of his boys asked for some drugs, so he helps him get a pill, and the woman chastises him, being like, oh, you need a pill just to keep yourself from shaking. You're pathetic. You're like, okay, that's a good, interesting squad. Thanos and them are definitely going to progress. I don't know how far into this they're going to get, but they're definitely going to make it past the second game. I'd like to believe 120 in their group will pass as well, but it's kind of like a, hey, we got to stick this together. I love Young Sik's mom being like, I survived the Korean War, could survive this. And Young Sik is like, I'm the child of the woman who survived the Korean War. And so they're the last up at the end of the episode. But I'm like, I think they'll make it through. Could be wrong, but I feel like they're going to be staying around at least a little while longer. So these are pretty much all these are like the main teams. I didn't really pay attention to which one 333 joined. It might have been like that old man who was chastising Gi-hoon. Obviously, they had their own squad as well. Either way, the 5 different games. The first game is the thing you play with the salesman, which Junhee said, like, yo, because they were asking Junhee, like, are you good at this game? And it's like, no. He's like, Jung-bae is like, isn't most girls like play that game? But the other Marine dude was like, I do. He's like, really? He's like, yeah, because I had like 4 older sisters. He's like, all right, you know, just like a Marine, being able to do whatever. So she's handling the envelope game. He's handling that game. I believe Jung-bae is handling what is essentially the second game, I believe. The one where you're trying to knock over that thing. The third game is the thing with the dice. Like, I guess it's almost, at first I was like, I don't fully understand it, but I guess it kind of reminds me of Jax to some extent. It kind of reminds me of, but and that's probably not the best equivalency. And the fourth game is like a spinning top. And then the fifth game, I don't know what it is because we actually didn't actually get to it. And that's the problem. It's like, and I love this. Just like it's so darkly comedic, and it's like, to be fair, there was like the Second game was kind of like that in the first season as well, especially because of the music, but especially at the end of it where you have like Gi-hoon licking and other people following behind him. So there was like a little silliness there, but it's like the entire, like the music and just the whole like, yeah, let's walk as one. What, you screwed up the game. We got to go get that piece, get back across the line. Oh, wait, we failed the game because you stepped over that line. I felt bad for, I think it's team number one. Poor bastards. They got stuck on the second game and the other team kept, kept pace. Like the third game is what screwed them up and they ended up wasting a lot of time because if you mess up, you have to start from scratch. So that sucks. And it took them a little while. It took them a couple tries with the spitting top. So, but both teams ended up getting eliminated. So it's one of those games where like both teams can win or both teams can lose. Or one team can win and one team can lose. So, but yeah, neither one of them. Poor guys too. Like the guy who got stuck on the second game, he pissed himself partway through because they were running out of time. And finally he was like, oh, I did it. But it was already too late. They'd spent so much time, especially because it's like the more time that passes, the more nervous you get. It's the effed up thing of like, you all volunteered for this. And it's like a little comedic for a bit. And then you have to get to the serious point where it's like, oh, it's getting darker and darker. The game goes on. Like the cheerful music just adds to how fucked up it is until like everyone gets blasted in. And then someone got up and see, you guys wanted to stay. Like that didn't come up as much during the first season. It's just kind of like everyone accepted it because once again, we're talking about a situation of the difference being they actually left and most people came back versus we had the vote and have to over 51% of the squad, the contestants decided to stay. So you don't have that dynamic of leaving, the desperation causing you to come back. So it's different. So there will be that continued division of we didn't want to continue, you did, this is on you, and now more people are dead. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us with all the... Oh my God, I almost forgot before I even wrap this up. I brought it up earlier, but almost let it slip my mind. Because Gi-hoon volunteered to like handle the final game. Because he's like, because what was his... Inho was like, which one do you prefer me to do, Gi-hoon? And he's like, did I tell you my name? And he's like, yeah, Jungbei said it all the time. And is it okay that I call you? I thought it'd be okay if I called you that. Give it a try. He's like, no, it's fine. I was like, yeah, you slipped up, but you're able to BS your way through that. But you're like, I don't know if Gi-hoon's picking up the pieces to this or not. So we'll see. We'll have to wait to see. I guess like he'll have to be careful as long as he never says it because he's been careful not to say his name. Because I'm like, I'd assume the frontman knows that he's been around your brother. I mean, when you got captured and stuff, as long as you never say your real name around Gi-hoon, he won't figure it out. Because he'll probably, I guess there's always a chance, like, I don't know how common, once again, I don't know enough Korean to know what's a common name in Korea. So I don't know if his name Inho is a common enough name. Because if he hears it, he might get a little suspicious of, you said my name is Gi-hoon. You said, wait, your name is Inho. Jungho was looking for a brother here. You might not necessarily correlate that, but it's still just something to kind of keep in the back of in your mind, especially because he hasn't mentioned his name. We'll see if he's able to kind of keep that up forever. But like I said, I'm just waiting to see if Gi-hoon's like, keeping a tally of, this is suspicious, that's suspicious, but he might end up brushing some of that off because he can be a little too trusting. But also, the first game taught him not to be trusting, but he's still here trying to save people. Instead of throwing everyone to the wolves, he's like, no, I'm here trying to save lives. So I think that speaks volumes. But yeah, going back to my outro, I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. Only 3 episodes left, so we'll see how this all shakes up and plays out, especially considering we're only on the second game and we've only got 3 episodes left. I'm curious to see what that means. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.